The ion storm hit without warning, which was the only honest thing it did. Marin Voss had 17 minutes of battery reserve in her suit, and nothing behind her but 40 kilometers of glass rock flats strobing white under the lightning. Ahead, through the murk of charged particulate and horizontal rain, there was a light. Not a beacon, not a distress marker. Just a light, yellow and fixed. The kind that meant someone had put it there on purpose, and intended to keep it burning. She ran toward it. The building was wrong in the small ways that matter. Portions were off. Doors too narrow at the base, flaring wide at the top in the Vraxi style. But the foundation stones were human-cut, rectangular, laid in courses by someone who'd learned masonry from a human source or a human mind. A hybrid. She'd seen a few of those in the outer settlements. Structures built by species that had studied human construction, the way humans once studied Roman aqueducts. With reverence for the engineering and incomprehension of the culture that made it necessary, she hammered on the door with her fist. The storm was eating the sound. The door opened before her third knock. He was tall, that was the first thing. Tall in the way that the Vraxi were tall. 2¼ meters, elongated torso, the triple-jointed arms held close to the body, the way a person holds their arms when they're cold. But his face was strange. The Vrexos had 4 optical clusters set in a band around the cranial dome. This one had 2, positioned forward, and they were darker than any Vraxi she'd seen. Almost brown. He looked at her with them, the way a person looks at someone they've been expecting, and are slightly disappointed to see. With almost no accent, she came in. The entrance hall was warm. That was the second thing. Not Vraxi warm, which ran hot enough to blister unprotected human skin, but human warm. 22 degrees or close to it. There was a coat rack, an actual coat rack, wooden pegs set in a horizontal bar, the kind her grandmother had kept by the back door in Reykjavik, and below it a mat for boots. She stood on the mat and dripped. "The storm will pass by morning," the alien said. He moved toward the interior of the building, with the unhurried certainty of someone walking through their own house in the dark. "You may stay until it does." "Thank you." She unclipped her helmet. "I'm Marin Voss, Xenobiology Survey Corps. Was doing a ridge survey when the ion front moved up the valley." "I know what you are," he said, without turning. She followed him into a long room lined with shelving. The shelves held equipment she recognized. Centrifuges, culture banks, sequencing arrays, and equipment she didn't. In the center of the room, a large table held a spread of specimens under glass domes, small and pale, arranged in a grid. She didn't look at them closely yet. She'd learned, doing this work, that there was an order to things. You let the host set the pace. You observed before you cataloged. "I am called Sezul," the alien said. Shh. He was at a counter now, doing something with his hands that produced, after a moment, the smell of something hot and close to coffee. Not coffee, close enough. "I have been here for a long time." "What is this place?" "A research station." He set a cup in front of her. The cup was a standard-issue Survey Corps mug. It had the Corps seal on it, the little stylized rocket bisecting a circle. She had 20 mugs exactly like it in her kit bag at base camp. "I study humans." She looked at the mug. She looked at him. "There aren't many humans in this system," she said carefully. "No," Sezul agreed. "There aren't many now." The storm outside went white for a long second. The windows, set high in the walls, human height placement, flared and dimmed. In that flash, she saw the shelves differently. What she had taken for culture domes were not culture domes. The shapes beneath the glass were not tissue samples. She picked up the mug and drank from it. The hot liquid steadied her hands. "How long have you been here?" she asked. 31 years, he said, by the Galactic standard count, since the first contact delegation came through this system. He sat across from her, settling his long body into a chair that was shaped for something taller, but designed with human ergonomics as the model. The lower back support was in the wrong place for him. It had been built for someone else. "I was a young researcher then. Comparative cognition was my field." Shh. "I had read everything your species had transmitted on the long-range arrays. Every paper, every broadcast, every diplomatic communication. I believed I understood you. And now?" He was quiet for a moment. Outside, a roll of thunder moved across the plateau, like something vast turning over in its sleep. "I understand that I didn't," he said. She let that sit. She was watching his hands. They rested on the table, with the fingers slightly spread, and she noticed now what she hadn't clocked in the dim of the entrance hall. The fingers were wrong. Not wrong in the way an alien's fingers are wrong, which is to say foreign, proportioned for a different skeleton. Wrong in a specific studied way, as though someone had looked at human hands and said, I see. 5 digits approximate length ratios, opposition between the thumb and the others, and then built an approximation from the outside in. They weren't Vraxi hands. They weren't quite anything's hands. She put the mug down. She looked at the shelves. May I? She said, gesturing. Of course. She walked to the nearest shelf. First dome. Bipedal, roughly 40 centimeters tall, in a clear suspension fluid. It had 2 eyes, positioned forward. A mouth with the right number of teeth for the wrong size of jaw. Fingers, approximately the right ratios. Ears set slightly too high. Skin the precise taupe of a 3D render of human skin. The color chosen by an algorithm that had averaged 1,000 reference images. It was a human being, made not born. Made by someone working from observation and documentation and immense technical skill, without once having held a real one. She moved to the next dome, then the next. There were 7 domes on that shelf. Some of them were close. One, near the end, the most recent by the look of the fluid's clarity, was very close. Proportions were almost right. The coloration was almost right. The small details, the fingernails, the eyebrows, the particular fold of the earlobe, were almost right. She turned. Sezuel had not moved from the table. He was watching her with those dark, forward-facing eyes. You've been doing this for 31 years, she said. Yes. Trying to make a human. Trying to understand a human, he said. And there was something in the precise calibration of his voice, the rhythm of the words, the rising inflection at the end, that she had been hearing since she walked through the door and only now located. He didn't speak standard like someone who had learned it. He spoke it like someone who had practiced it 10,000 times in an empty room. Alones saying the words back to recordings, until the recordings and the voice were indistinguishable, like someone who had never had a conversation until now. How many people have been in this building, she asked. 3, he said, in 31 years. 2 came through the pass, before the treaty established this system as a survey zone. 1 left something behind. He looked at the shelves. The other did not leave. She didn't ask which was which. She looked at the most recent dome and thought about the person it had been made from and did not let herself do the math on what had been necessary to get those proportions so nearly right. First 2, she said. What were they like? Frightened, Sezuel said. The first one was very frightened. Shit. She was a navigator on a freight hauler that came through the wrong approach corridor. She stayed for 11 days before I could arrange transport. She cried at mealtimes for the first 3 days. Then she stopped and began asking questions about my work. She had no training in biology, but the questions were good. He paused. She named the largest of the lakefish outside. She had a name for each of them within a week. Marin looked at him. You found that remarkable, she said. I found it inexplicable, he said. They were not her fish. She had no relationship with them. She would never see them again. The naming served no scientific or survival purpose. He spread his approximate human hands on the table. I have been trying to understand it for 31 years. What did she call them? The largest one she called Henrik, he said. I don't know what that means. It's a name, Marin said. A human name, at least someone she knew. Yes, Sezuel said. That is what I cannot model. The storm hammered the roof. She sat back down at the table. She wrapped her hands around the core mug. Henrik, someone's Henrik, and she thought about 31 years of solitary work, in a building built to human specifications, using human tools, with human mugs, and a human coat rack by the door, trying to build something from the outside in, and never understanding why it wouldn't take. The navigator, she said. The one who didn't leave. Was she the source material for those? She tilted her head toward the shelves. Sezuel did not answer immediately. I had her medical records from the ship's databank, he said. Genetic sequencing, detailed biometrics. I would not have. He stopped, started again. She died. She had a cardiac event on the 3rd night. I did not cause it. I could not prevent it. I had no experience with human physiology and no functioning medical equipment, and the nearest relay station was 6 days away at light speed. The words came out flat and practiced, the cadence of a report recited many times. I used what she left behind. Because you wanted to understand. Because she was the only human I had ever known, he said. And she was gone and I was trying to bring something back. He said it the way a person says something they've never said to anyone and have been thinking for a very long time. Marin sat with that for a moment. Outside, the storm tore at the eaves. Inside, 47 domes held 47 approximations of a woman who had named a fish Henrik and asked good questions about xenobiology and died in the dark on a foreign planet. While a researcher who had never treated a cardiac event stared at monitors he couldn't read. What was her name? Marin asked. Sura Pole, he said instantly, with the weight of someone who has said a name so many times in private that it comes out in public like a stone dropped in still water. Survey Auxiliary. She was 29. Did she tell you what Henrik meant? Henrik it was. Her father, he said. She mentioned it on the 7th day. He had been a fisherman on a planet called Lindros. She said the fish here reminded her of his fish. He was quiet. I researched Lindros. I found images of the fishing boats. I found records of the fishing cooperative where her father worked. I don't know why I looked. Yes, you do, Marin said. He looked at her. You were doing what she did, Marin said. You were naming things, giving them a shape in your mind so they didn't disappear. He was very still. The forward-facing eyes, too dark for Vraxi, too steady for anything trying to perform calm, looked at her across the table, and she understood then, with the specific chill of someone who has spent a career reading species that aren't her own, what she was looking at. She understood the coat rack, the mug, the temperature of the room. She understood the hands. Sezul was not Vraxi. Sezul had never been Vraxi. The name was not a Vraxi name, and the height was wrong, and the forward-facing eyes were not the result of convergent evolution, but of a researcher who had studied the images of humans, who looked up at the sky and decided that seeing the world the way they saw it might be the beginning of comprehension. She understood why Dome 47 was so close to right and still so wrong. She understood what 31 years of isolation does to a mind that is trying, with everything it has, to cross a distance that cannot be crossed by study alone. She should have been afraid. She knew, intellectually, that she should have been afraid. There were 47 failed attempts at constructing a human being on the shelves behind her. There was a dead woman, whose genetic material had been used without consent. There was a creature across this table whose hands were built to approximate hers, and whose voice had been calibrated against recordings of voices she would never hear. She looked at him. He was looking at the mug in her hands. You want to ask me something, she said. Yes, he said. Then ask. He was quiet for a long moment. The storm outside ran its course across the plateau. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost some of its precision. Not the words, but the space between them, which had loosened into something less rehearsed. Fish, he said, the naming. I have a model now for why it happens. Associative memory, the construction of narrative continuity, emotional anchoring through the assignment of familiar categories to unfamiliar objects. I can produce a technically accurate explanation. When she said his name, when she looked at that fish in the lake and called it Henrik, her face changed. He paused. Not in a way I can model. Not in a way the explanation accounts for. There is a residue in the expression that I have no category for. I have been trying to categorize it for 31 years. What did it look like? Marin asked. It looked like pain, he said. But she was smiling. Marin thought about her own father, about the smells of his workshop in Reykjavik, oil and solder, and the particular cold of a Nordic winter, about how she named her first discovered species, a bioluminescent coral analog on Praxis the 7, after his favorite card game, how she typed the name into the registry and felt something she couldn't explain. Something that was grief and also wasn't. It's called missing someone, she said. It's pain and pleasure at the same time. You love a person or a place or a time in your life, and they're gone, and the love doesn't go. It has nowhere to put itself, so it goes into the nearest available thing. Fish, the name, the act of naming. He was very still. That, she said, is what you've been trying to build for 31 years. It cannot be built, he said. No, she agreed, it can't. He looked at the domes. At Dome 47, the one with the nearly right face and the precisely wrong empty expression. I know, he said. He said it like a door closing. I have known for a long time. The structure is correct. The chemistry is correct. The neural architecture produces the correct sex signals. But when I observe the result, he stopped. It doesn't have anywhere to put the love, Marin said. The word sat between them. Outside, the lightning had stopped. The rain remained, quieter now. The ion storm burning itself out on the far ridge. Surapol died before I could ask her, he said. I have thought many times that if she had lived a few more days, if I had not spent those days observing when I should have been, there was a question I wanted to ask her. And now I am asking it of human the same question, my you, 31 years later, and I'm not certain I have the right to. Ask it, Marin said. Fish, he said, Henrik. When she looked at it, when she felt that thing you're describing, the love with nowhere to go, was she still Sura? Fi, was she more Sura? I need to know if the pain made her less herself, or if it was the part of her that was most essentially herself. Marin was quiet. Outside, a long peal of thunder rolled away into the distance, the last of the storm retreating. It was the part of her that was most essentially herself, Marin said. The pain of missing someone you love is the most human thing there is. It's the proof that something mattered. It's what we are, when you strip everything else away. He sat with that. The way he sat with it was patient and thorough, in a way she'd seen in the best researchers she'd worked with. The ones who could hold a new thought without crushing it. Then I have been trying to build the wrong thing, he said. Yes. I was trying to build a human who would not feel loss, who would be stable, resilient. I thought that was the strength, the capacity to function without the vulnerability. He looked at his hands, the approximate ones, studied your physiology, your cognition, your history. I read about every war, every extinction event, every catastrophe your species survived. I could not find the mechanism. I could not find the physiological source of the resilience. It looked, from the outside, like pure stubbornness, simple refusal. He paused. I could not build stubbornness. I built compliance instead, and the compliance looked wrong. And I could not understand why until now. The stubbornness is not a mechanism, Marin said. It's not something separate. It comes from the same place as the grief, the same place as naming the fish. You can't have one without the other. You can't build the part that refuses to die without also building the part that loves things it knows it's going to lose. He looked at Dome 47 for a long time. A Pole would have told me this, he said, if I had asked her before she died. Probably, Marin said. She sounds like she would have known. She knew many things she didn't know she knew, he said. I observed her for 11 days. She was afraid, and then she was curious, and then she was busy. She reorganized my failing system on day 9. I had not asked her to. She said it was driving her mad. I looked up the idiom, and it said it meant causing intense frustration. But she said it lightly, and she was almost laughing when she said it. He paused. I have the reorganized files. I have kept them as she arranged them. Marin said nothing. The rain outside had gone soft and irregular. A few hours until dawn, maybe less. I am going to ask you something, Sezul said. And I want you to understand that the asking is not a precursor to anything. I am not going to prevent you from leaving. I am not going to ask you to stay. I am asking only for the answer, because there is no one else to ask, and there has not been for a very long time. Okay, Marin said. Did I do something wrong, he said. To Surapol, I did not cause her death. I did not detain her. I gave her everything I had that would sustain a human body, which was not much. After, using what she left behind, trying to bring back something that was like her, he stopped. The words had run out somewhere he could not reach. I don't know what the correct framework is. Don't know if what I did was grief or violation. I have been the only one who knew it happened, and I have been unable to determine it on my own. The rain came down. Marin thought about Surapol, 29 years old, who had named a fish and asked good questions, and reorganized a filing system, and died in the dark on a planet whose name she probably didn't know. She thought about what she'd want if it were her. She thought about the 47 domes, built not with malice but with longing, 31 years of longing, sealed in glass. I think you did something wrong, she said carefully. And I think it came from the same place as the right things. Not wanting her to disappear entirely. From trying to understand, she paused. I think Surapol, if she knew, would have been angry. And I think, because of who she sounds like she was, she would also have understood why. And those two things would have coexisted in her, without resolving. That's what I mean about the love having nowhere to go. He was very still. That answer is very human, he said quietly. Yes, Marin said, it is. The storm was almost gone. The windows showed a sky going from black to the dark gray that precedes dawn on a high plateau. She could see the lake from where she sat. She could see just barely the long, still shapes of the lake fish moving under the lightning surface. I need to contact my base camp, she said. My suit transmitter runs on a different frequency from your station. You permit me to use yours? Yes, he said, of course. She sent the standard check-in, all clear. Turning at first light. The response came back in 3 minutes. Terse and professional, and briefly warm in the core way. Which was to say it asked if she was okay. And then told her to remember to eat something. She almost laughed. They care about you, Sezul said. He had not read the transmission. She believed that. The way she believed things about people she had spent a long night talking to, with the same provisional faith that living alongside other beings requires. They do, she said. That is what I could not model, he said simply. Not the caring, the casualness of it. The way it exists in a message about logistics. The way it is not the point, but it is always there. It's called subtext, Marin said. I know the definition, he said. I could not replicate it. In 47 attempts. She looked at the domes again. They were very quiet. The 47, they had been made to survive. They had the resilience in the structure, the chemistry of endurance, the architecture of a species that had crawled out of the ocean and looked at the stars and decided to go there. They had none of the weight that made the going worth it. They were the structure without the mortar, fish without the name. She stood up. She brought the mug to the counter, rinsed it the way she rinsed mugs everywhere, automatic and without ceremony. What will you do with them? She said. I will give them to your people, he said. The Survey Corps. They belong to Surapol and I have been keeping them too long. I know this. I have known it for some time. I did not know how to begin, he paused. I did not know if any human would come. We come everywhere eventually, Marin said. It's what we do. Yes, he said, I know. That was in all the documentation. He looked at the windows, where the sky was going gray and pale. It is also the thing I understood least. Why? Where does it come from? What is in a species that looks out at something that will almost certainly kill them, and goes anyway? The same place as the fish, Marin said. He thought about that for a long moment. Henrik, he said. Yes, she said. Henrik. The sun came over the ridge. It was a red sun, this one, and it painted the lake orange and copper. And the fish moved through the shallows like slow, large thoughts. Marin stood at the window and watched them. Sezul stood beside her. Taller by nearly a meter, his approximate human hands at his sides, his forward-facing eyes looking out at the same water. The largest one, he said. She looked. There was one, broader backed than the others, moving with a deliberate patience along the shallows, turning over the rocks with its wide pectoral fins. Sura named it, she said. Yes. And you've called it that for 31 years, yes. They watched Henrik move through the shallows. I'm going to recommend your station for official xenological recognition, Marin said. It'll take time. Core has a process. But someone will come back, properly equipped with the right protocols. They'll want to talk to you. I will be here, he said. I know. She picked up her helmet from the table. When they come, be patient with them. Humans are very slow to trust things they don't understand. I have noticed that, Sezul said. But when we trust something, she said, we're very hard to shake. It's the same mechanism. She walked to the entrance hall. She took her jacket from the peg on the human coat rack. She pulled on her boots on the mat that was there for boots. At the door, she turned. One more thing, she said. Psst. He was watching her from the long room. What you did with the work of the people who came here. The filing system Sura organized on day 9. Keep it. When the core team arrives, show them that first. Before the domes, before the equipment, show them that she was here, and what she did when she was here. Let them see that you kept it. He was quiet. Why? He said. Because that's the part that will make them understand you, she said. Not the science. The fact that you kept the filing system. The fact that you didn't change it back. She went out into the morning. Plateau was washed clean. The glass rock plains to the east reflected the red sun like a mirror. And the air smelled of ozone and rain and the particular cold of high altitude at first light. She walked without hurrying, her boots finding the firm ground under the puddles, her breath making small clouds. At the base of the ridge she turned and looked back. The building was already small in the distance. In one window, which was lit from inside, she could see a shape, tall, standing at the glass, watching her cross the plain. She raised a hand. After a moment, the shape in the window raised one back. She turned and walked toward camp. Around her, the lakefish moved in the shallows, their wide backs breaking the surface, the red light catching the water and throwing it up in long slants. They were magnificent, she thought. Great heavy things, patient and deliberate. She watched them, as she walked, the way Sura had watched them 31 years ago from a different direction. And she thought about her father's workshop in Reykjavik, and the cold, and the solder smell, and the card game she had named a choral analog after, and the particular weight of love that has nowhere to put itself. She walked, and the plain was long, and the morning came up red around her, and she went into it the way her people had always gone into the things that would probably kill them, which is to say, with her eyes open, and afraid, and going anyway, carrying all the names of everything she loved like a light against the dark. It was not a mechanism. It was not a thing that could be built. It was the mortar. It was all of it, always, the whole impossible weight of being human, carried not because it was easy, but because setting it down had never once felt like an option worth considering. She went home in the morning with someone else's name on her lips, Henrik. She didn't know why. She said it anyway.